Well, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to, I think, the eighth and final lunch session for Yale, the Yale-China relationship with Hsing-ay Hsu, who I've gotten to meet over the last few minutes and had the great opportunity to see some of the great work she's been doing on YouTube. Thank you for actually posting and helping me understand what you've actually tried to accomplish. I'm Dr. Keith Churchwell. I'm the president of Yale New Haven Hospital and also the president of the New Haven Symphony Orchestra. And I have the wonderful opportunity to actually spend some time with Hsing-ay, just talking about what she's actually been trying to accomplish with music. She'll probably ask me some questions about how music has affected my work. And I'm happy to try to answer that, and we'll have hopefully a wonderful few minutes to talk about how things have been. So, Hsing-ay, good afternoon, and it's so great to meet you.
So great to meet you, Dr. Churchwell, and I'm very honored to be able to meet not only a president of a major hospital at Yale New Haven, but also the president of the board of the New Haven Symphony Orchestra. And so we have two in one, and how amazing is that connection? Wow.
Well, you know, it's sometimes the stars align, right, at the end of the day. Yeah. We were talking about that there's, for me, a long-standing commitment and an interaction with music. So it was pretty natural when my wife and I came to the town to become part of the symphony and the symphony board, and that has led for me to have this particular position over the past few years, and it's been a wonderful opportunity and a great group of people to work with, even in the midst of a pandemic, which has actually had a significant impact on the symphony, and I'm sure has had an impact on you and your capability to get out and about and actually spread the word.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, and I like to hope that because of the pandemic keeping us indoors, inside, that we've had to spend more time in our internal world. And I'm hoping that that has helped us to become better listeners to ourselves and to each other. And I'm hoping that as we go forward, that this might be a rare opportunity for us to decide what to do with this newfound information of what we're hearing in our society, what we're hearing in ourselves.
So do you feel that people have taken this time to be that reflective and in regards to that particular connection? I was really interested and really fascinated by your thoughts about the connection between mind, body, and music, and the overall opportunity that music can deliver in improving the overall health and well-being of an individual. Talk a bit about that, if you could.
Yeah, I'd love to. I see music as a tool, a connector between the different parts of ourselves. And it also is about connecting arts and education, or the sense that we always want to be growing and learning, and then also health, which I feel like the definition of health has expanded over my lifetime, right? I mean, when I was in China, you don't go to a doctor unless you're dying. There's no health insurance. There's no annual visits. There's no resources like that, you know. And that has evolved there. But here in the States, where there's so much great research at Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and elsewhere that is connecting the emotions to how our body is functioning, connecting our thoughts. I was just talking to a GI specialist yesterday, and she's talking about the brain-gut connection, and that was her webinar she's giving today. Just incredible, the amount of connections that we are able to research and document these days.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when you're thinking about how to use music positively in regards to helping and improving the overall health or the well-being of an individual, or for a group, or for a population, are there particular types of music we should be looking for, we should actually be listening to from your perspective? or is it just music in itself in terms of trying to find the pleasure in anything that you listen to?
Yeah, what an interesting question. So the pieces that I chose for this particular webinar had to do with also the cultural layer, which is encouraging AAPI, Asian Americans, and trying to find music that speaks to my own heritage as a Chinese American. So therefore, I chose composers who were Chinese American, and try to mix up, kind of different pieces of my own identity that I can share, because this is really about kind of my personal journal of music listening. But to answer your question about, is all music equally healthy? I think no, I don't think so. I think that, in any field, right, there are composers who had really healthy ideas of humanity and composers who didn't. And there is music that is about kindness and resilience and lifting the spirit. And then there's music about hate and division. And so I think learning how to curate for the good intention of the community is something that I hope that everyone is interested in. But music has been used for propaganda in totalitarian states. It's been used to brainwash people. It is a very powerful and could be a dangerous tool, and depends on how we use it. And but there's a responsibility, I think, in terms of if we're composing or programming or creating, that we should be aware of the implications.
You talk a bit about how to listen to your body, or what are the keys or cues you should be actually listening for or feeling as you actually respond to or listen to a piece of music. Talk a bit about actually making that connection and what an individual should be sort of working towards, and thinking about using music for a medicinal properties, right? How can they actually make that connection? What should they actually be putting, whether it be on a piece of paper or actually asking themselves as they're listening to music in this particular way, what should they think about, what they should respond to? What should they actually say to themselves? I have actually evaluated this, and I should be thinking about this as I'm listening to music.
Well, Dr. Churchwell, I want to repeat the disclaimer that I have for this webinar series. I am not a trained medical.
Yes, you've done a very good job with that.
I'm trained medical personnel, and I'm totally coming at this from the artistic side. And this is why you are here to anchor us and balance us out. But in terms of the listening aspect, that really is the key. I think that music is an invitation for us to listen better. And let's see, let me give you a little backstory to my own relationship with breathing. Because, when I was growing up, and all I did was want to practice piano, and I did not breathe. In fact, there were times at high school where I was on the verge of fainting because I didn't have the ability to listen to what my body needed. I was so intense about productivity and excellence. That's all I had in my mind. And so I was ignoring my body. And so when I was in my senior year at Juilliard, they awarded me the Pechek Prize that year, which was the recital at Alice Tully Hall Lincoln Center. And so I hid the fact that my body was overworked, and I injured myself, and I couldn't play. I couldn't even wash the dishes. And I had to postpone a year, and it was really devastating. And it was in that despair where I suddenly realized one day that I could breathe. And if I breathed, somehow things felt better. I mean, it's interesting, when I'm teaching piano students and they say, well, I don't feel like I need to breathe. And if I start breathing, it makes things harder. But that's because whenever we make a change, we have to do it very gently, because if we force our body to do something, it actually comes up with a lot more resistance, right? So, but the thing is that when I discovered that I could move my lungs at will, it was life-changing. And I started realizing how much I was not listening to my body, to the circumstances, to life. And it's kind of a metaphor. I mean, like, musicians love analogies with life. And I find that, more and more as I get older, I love thinking about what I do in music and how that translates into how I live life. And so being able to breathe is a way for us to become more aware of what's around us, what's happening in the world. And that's where I want people to be, when they hear the music, they can pause, take a moment to take it all in and stop ignoring everything out there. And that opening up is kind of the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of our learning, right? And the beginning of our being able to work together and collaborate. And so when I talk about multidimensional awareness, boy, I feel like there's not ever been a time where that is such a felt need in our country, because everyone is tunnel vision about how they're suffering, and we're all suffering, right? But everyone's experience of it is so unique and so special and so important. And then we need to share that so that we can understand each other suffering through this horrific time. But it's also exciting in that it's an unveiling time. Like, there's things that we just weren't noticing before. And it's not like they weren't there. It's just, we just didn't pay attention and we didn't listen before. So
you said something I remember from the YouTube, I think is important in this part of the conversation, that breathing is both intentional and it's unintentional. One has to breathe to live, and respiration actually will come on no matter what, but one can control one's breathing. And that in itself can have beneficial effects because it actually, in terms of reducing overall stress and in reducing anxiety and actually being in the moment, as you talked about. This type of exercise or this type of opportunity of actually interacting with music in a unique way, in a more personal way. How old should one start in thinking about this type of relationship? How young do small kids, can they actually do this? Is this something actually as we grow older in the teenage years or middle years, is something that we can start the overall process? What's been your experience in terms of who can and actually understand and actually use this particular technique to a great degree to actually improve their overall sense and well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like education starts way before we are aware that we are learning or we're being educated, right? And I think earlier you were talking about setting norms when we're getting to know each other. And I feel like setting the norm for young kids is so important, that they would see how it actually feels for parts of the body to be connected, and how if they can notice that when they're upset and they take a slower breath, it can actually help them feel better. And I think that there is no age that is too young for that to be kind of just in the background of how their bodies can work, that we can connect different parts of ourselves. And then as we get older, of course, we start to be so aware, and teenage years are hard because suddenly we're just so aware of everything. But I think that's when, if the breathing has been there all along and suddenly you need it, the tool is within reach. But if we don't talk about it and there's no tools for people who need it in the moment, then they don't know where to go, and there's nothing immediately there. And that's the same thing for community, right? Like if we have our support and our family and our friends and our neighbors, then when something happens, we reach out and we know how to access them. Whereas if we've never talked to them before, it's difficult. And that's the same thing with doctors, like going to an annual checkup, and that's just part of the rhythm of life, rather than like, oh, they're piano teachers too. Like some people are really reluctant to go get piano coaching because, I'm independent and I should know how to figure out on my own. Sure. It's the same thing with health. I don't want to see a doctor because if I just drink more water, I'm going to be better.
It's a great point, and because we should think about physicians and the health professional relationships that people should connect with as an opportunity for someone with expertise to join them in their journey to actually better health, to optimal health. Not use it as an opportunity only if I feel something is life-threatening, or I feel acutely ill, or I feel so severely ill that I've been working through this for a few days and it's to the point that I can't stand it anymore. That actually is probably a little bit counterproductive in developing the right relationship and utilizing the resource to its best degree. Those regular checkups, those regular opportunities to interact with your clinician, your health professional, gives you an opportunity to actually ask good questions, to actually make sure that that you can align your pathway to better health, and you get good advice about the do's and don'ts in regards to that, and it can hopefully ask good questions from you to them about the things that you'd like to do and whether there's pluses and minuses in regards to actually taking that particular path, right?
Absolutely.
I think it's an important point. The exercise you've talked about and you describe and you demonstrate on YouTube, if one wanted to actually incorporate that as part of their daily life, is this a daily exercise? Is it a weekly? What would be a recommendation from you for someone who wanted to actually start incorporating the utilization of music to help them in terms of thinking about their overall general health and their overall well-being?
Yeah, I just watched this. Actually, my daughter showed me this great YouTube about taking care of yourself. It's something like CBP Gray, or I have to look that up. But one of the ideas that I found really interesting was, instead of trying to have like a set schedule, if we can think about a theme of the season. So if we think of like self-awareness and breath, which helps us to connect ourselves to our body, if we can have that be part of the season of life, then we just find little moments here and there to do it as we can. So rather than feeling like we failed if we didn't tune in to Musical Moment this Thursday, rather than feeling like we screwed up again or didn't put enough time into it, it's more of, what are we going to think about and focus on? So I thought that was really good, because I think the last thing we need for people to do is feel like I have another task. So,
Sure.
the interpretation will be different in each person. Just like, as artists, every one of us playing the same Mozart sonata should be able to bring something completely different and unique to it.
Yeah. Going back to this, I think that remarkable story when you were at Juilliard, and that the fact that as you figured out that breathing was incredibly important for you to actually go forward with. How did that also, and did it actually release you in other unique ways and expand your overall capability and horizons to take on different goals, different lines of work, and give you sort of a basis about how to do that and do it more effectively? How's that been for you?
Well, Dr. Churchwell, I'm still trying to figure that out right now as we speak. Where am I going with this? Because up to that point, I was so focused on performing and traveling and touring. And then as I did travel and tour, I found that really stressed my body out. And so I don't think that these issues are something that we can connect with our body once and be done with it. Yeah. It's so circular, right? And we're going back and back again. And there's different times in my life after that. When I was at Yale University and I had a very busy season with playing at Tanglewood, and the injury will flare up again because we have to continually reconnect and learn more and more. And even this morning, I'm learning new things about Feldenkrais that I hadn't heard about the first time around in terms of how to be aware of our shoulder and our neck. So anyway, I'm still learning. And in terms of, my work, certainly I think that when I'm teaching piano, and I'm doing all this teaching online these days, but when I'm doing it, I am really attuned to how are they using their body. And I'm very gentle. I never try to impose this is how you do, but I'm very gentle about there are some options that your body would like if one day you become open to it. And just planting seeds all the time. And then eventually, there's a day where I notice, oh, here's a moment where someone is open. And then we talk more about how,
Sure. Great. All right. I've asked you a lot of questions. You can ask me a question. I feel like I put you on the spot the last 20 minutes or so.
That's good. We were talking a little bit about expanding the definition of healthcare, these days, and music too. We're constantly expanding the idea of what's consonant music. But could you talk to us a little bit about how you think of health, how you define health?
Well, so we traditionally define health by my interaction with you as a healthcare, as a clinician, as a physician, of the medicines I give you, right? Mm-hmm. The recommendations in terms of your overall day-to-day activities that's actually going to improve some particular disease state. Yeah. Blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, these things that actually inflict and impact the body over time.
Right.
What we have found, though, and actually the truth is that that's actually an important part, but actually ultimately a small part of actually the overall health of an individual. That what impacts health actually is about education and transportation and nutrition, and what we call the social determinants. And what are the things that we can do to actually improve and enhance those particular issues? How do we actually improve the overall, our ability to actually equitably give therapy, give care in a way that actually moves us and moves any particular individual in the right direction? I can give one particular medication to someone, but based upon their overall circumstances, where they live, how they live, what their economic circumstances is, it may have one impact on that particular individual, but it may have a completely different impact on someone else who actually lives in and survives in a different circumstance. So really understanding that and actually thinking about how do we develop a plan of care and a plan of action with others within their own environment, within their health environment, within their structural environment from a work perspective, from a neighborhood perspective, that actually can lead to actually true improvement in health, getting people on a right pathway and a persistently a longitudinal pathway that leads them actually to an overall enhancement of care, I think is going to be really important. I think we're starting to understand that. We're starting to think about who are the partners that with our patients and with their families that we need to bring to the table so that we can make a real interdiction on these particular issues if there are significant deficiencies in regards to all this. And then come out with actually a concrete evaluation about whether we've actually moved the needle. Have we improved that particular individual's health? Have we improved that neighborhood's health or the population's health? What are the things that we continue to do that maybe at actually a much larger perspective around pollution or living circumstances that we need to actually comment on, have some recommendations for, think about those who actually can make the right interdiction to, and actually work with the individual and with the family and with the community to actually move it in the right direction. So, and I think we've expanded our view of what real health is, true health is, right? Both mind, body, mental, physical health, and its impact on the individual, and what we can do and should do really on that, not only within the doctor's office, but really outside that environment to actually improve overall health.
That's so interesting, and it so parallels, I think, what I think of as effective teaching, because I think a lot of the time I'm spending is talking about how do you actually practice it, and then trying to see if they actually heard you, because, you know, a week later, they may have heard maybe only a quarter of what we talked about in the practice of it. But yeah, that's great. I mean, I identify, I resonate with that so much. And it sounds like you guys are just really elevating the idea of healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to understand it better. We're working because we know that the work that we've done previously is incredibly important, but it's not going to get us to where we actually have the best impact in terms of the health and the well-being of the communities that we serve. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if I was going to ask the question, what particular piece of music sets you in the right moods, actually puts you in the sends you in the right direction in regards to this, what would that be?
In direction of feeling
well-being, positive, what's the right word? Vibe,
positive outlook.
You feel that actually you have set yourselves in the right direction, that actually will come what may, what goes coming down the line, you're prepared to actually sort of take on.
Yeah, you know, I think it really depends on the day and how I'm already feeling. You know, I do this listening club once a month, and it's to practice how to listen together. So it's called The Cafe, and anyone is welcome to join me. You can find it on my website. But we start with trying to find neutral, and I always try to find a neutral place where then we can open up to the emotions of the composer of the music that we're listening to. But in terms of, like, you know, the themes of the webinar, one is to energize and another is to have internal intentions, to clarify our intentions. And depending on how I feel, what my body is needing on a day, I'll probably play something different to listen to. But when I'm looking for clarity, there's nothing like Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, because he has really complicated music, right? I mean, it's mathematical and it's complex, and there's a golden point and you find strettos, but at the end of the day, it's just so clear what he's trying to communicate. He's trying to show you where the end of each phrase is, and he's trying to show you where the beginning of each theme is. And I just love, I mean, clarity is something that makes me feel safe. And so, you know, that.
Sure.
He's just so spiritual.
Yes.
He just grounds me.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that.
For you?
Fantastic.
How about you?
Well, you know, I think you said something important. I listen to music sometimes based upon mood. What I'm trying to accomplish during the day. What can energize me, or is it intellectual stimulation? Is it an emotional stimulation? I think there's a tremendous amount of emotion in music. What is actually from the notes themselves, but also what the musician's trying to convey. And to me, that actually has been very important in trying to understand, because from that, I get a greater understanding about the individual, but also what the music is trying to say, right? Mm-hmm. And you're right, people can interpret it different ways. You can actually have one song with multiple interpretations. based upon the musician and based upon the time and based upon what they think is the opportunity of what they're trying to accomplish. So, I spend a lot of time in the car or actually in the office when I trying to set a mood, but also using that as an opportunity to try to understand better, because I think it helps me understand myself a bit better, right? How do I think? How does it help me think better? How does it help me actually put things together, interculate, extrapolate from other resources, other ideas, other issues, and actually try to convey a better thought? How does Beethoven help me with that? Or how does Wynton Marsalis Philharmonic Orchestra help me with that from that standpoint? I think all of it is probably very much interrelated, whether you're just in the car, just sort of la-di-dong and singing along, or actually you're trying to intently listening to see if you can actually hear what the musician's trying to convey, right?
Absolutely. I heard Badori say recently on a webinar that music is communicating with ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's
and communicating on so many levels with the world, with ourselves, and the inner outer.
Right. All right. Wonderful. Hsing-ay, I think we have come to the end of our time. I think it's been I've just enjoyed this immensely. The opportunity to talk with you. All right. Wonderful.
Thank you very much for your time. And I hope that the symphony has a wonderful season.
Cross your fingers. Yeah, a lot to do. Hopefully things will keep the pandemic will stay at bay, and we'll be able to actually come back together and with a full symphony and a full audience to enjoy the music. So thank you.
Wonderful. Right. Thank you, Dr. Churchwell.
My pleasure. Great to meet you.
You too.
All right.
Well, friends, over these past 8 weeks, we've shared a lot of cultural moments together and enjoyed performances of music along with breathwork and did activities of the week. And so I hope that you have benefited by spending this time to stay motivated and to learn how to expand our awareness of our nervous system, our emotions, circulation, communications, and musical imagination. Then we can use all of that we've been talking about to work out our own creativity muscle so that we can listen well and engage better with our own communities. And I think that if we pay attention to our mental and physical, spiritual, financial, social health, and take that time to invest in our understanding, then we will function at a higher level and be ready to enjoy being alive. And so that brings us to the theme today of transformation, transforming adversity into a positive outlook. And today's piece is Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G, Opus 32, number 5. Let's take a moment to find our breath together. Okay, the cultural nugget of the day. So I think of creativity as an act of hope in the future. And creativity comes through in Chinese people often as resourcefulness. When I first came to the US, my parents were working low-paying jobs because of the green card situation, and we didn't have money for music education. And so through conversations with our American school community, through the desire to connect and reach out, they were able to secure a music scholarship for me at a local school, which then led me to be able to have my first concerto performance as a soloist in front of a full orchestra when I was only 11. And my parents are creative people. That's the whole reason why they took the risk of leaving their homeland to come to America. And like so many other Chinese Americans, they valued transforming a situation from adversity into an opportunity for change, for adapting. And in our need to adapt, we often look to different, but we have this choice to decide to celebrate each other's differences because it takes all kinds to make a village. Now, Russian composer Sergei Rachmaninoff fled the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution, and he landed in New York City at the height of the Spanish flu epidemic in 1918. Along with masses of Europe's classical musician refugees, migrants from World War I. What a terrible time that was. Rachmaninoff contributed to transforming New York City from a place of manufacturing into a global cultural center. Now, as we listen to his music, I'll be guiding our musical breath work with my hands like this. Inhale, expand, and exhale, release. So let's try that one more time. Together, inhale, expand with me, and feel like you're floating like a balloon, and then exhale, release. If you find yourself breathing in a different pattern than what I'm showing, that's okay. Just close your eyes and keep breathing. And when you're comfortable enough, then open your eyes and let me show you some of the patterns and the options you have in how you listen to the phrasing. Ready? I'm playing today on this beautiful 9-foot concert ground by Steinway and Sons that's been turned into a modern, magical, floral explosion by local artist Trisha Paluccio of Modern Pressed Flower. And this is the Prelude in G, Opus 32, number 5, by Rachmaninoff. Well, it's such a bittersweet moment that was our last breathwork together, but I hope that you will stay in touch with me on my website. And if you're interested in more of Rachmaninoff's music, I do have an event with his Opus 22 variations on a theme by Chopin on my website, which is such an amazing piece of transformation. Again, so many of his pieces are, but this particular variations, I'll just tell you a little bit, is that he transforms a theme by Chopin, a really dark theme, into 22 variations of different types of emotions. And just the variety and the creativity of that mind is just so mind-boggling. So check it out if you'd like to hear more Rachmaninoff on my website. The activity of our week is, I don't think that we can control what happens around us, but what we can do is practice our resilience and be prepared for when things happen. And we're all uniquely made, uniquely designed with so many layers. And so I invite you to make it a theme of your season that you would take the time to get to know yourself, to explore you, your family, your heritage, your history in the American fabric. And then you can transform it by contributing to your community and becoming part of the history. You do belong here. And also, I wanted to say that asking for help is not a sign of being less. It's actually a sign of strength and wanting to be involved, wanting to heal and help others as well. And so there are people who dedicate their entire lives to helping people in need. And if you ever don't feel safe, please tell someone you know right away or call someone. There are services as well. And if you're hurt or harassed, please do report it. There is a stopaapihate.org website that keeps track and then uses it to advocate. So with all this, I also want to say a special thank you to all the people out there, whether you're AAPI or AAPI allies, that thank you for being interested in the Asian cultures, being interested in my story as a Chinese American. Thank you for being part of our project. A special thank you to Dean Robert Blocker at the Yale School of Music, to all our performing arts colleagues. Thank you for inspiring us to communicate with each other and with ourselves through music. Thank you to Dr. Keith Churchwell at the Yale New Haven Hospital and at the New Haven Symphony Orchestra, and to all our healthcare workers this year. Thank you for taking care of our health, for giving our society the stability that we need to function, and for creating integrated healthcare for our futures. And thank you to our wonderful Annie Lin, the Arts Program Director at Yale-China, for your thoughtful approach, for your passionate care of the AAPI community, and for your leadership in producing this series. Well, stay in touch, friends. We're sharing some links for you. You can find my YouTube schedule or join my listening cafe through my website, hsingayshu.com. And also, the second link is for my bi-monthly newsletter, where I love to make connections between music and life. And the third link is for my weekly YouTube channel, and I'll be taking August off and coming back in September. I do hope to hear from you. Okay, now we will end musical moments with audience questions. Hopefully this will help us to digest what we've been talking about. And let's see, what are the questions? So question number 1. what has been the biggest challenge for you during this pandemic? I'm feeling just how much we are in aggressive, dominating, money-driven world where people want to engineer outcomes and never lose, and they want to exploit and never prioritize how to replenish. And we see this in inequities and in climate change, and it's really hard to carry this awareness. We're out of balance as a society, and then also as individuals who need to figure out how to respond to so much. So some of the questions that I've come up with that I've been trying to answer are, so how are we going to regulate our health so that we're not so vigilant that we become paralyzed? How are we going to find enough safety to be able to live life and go out on the streets when random attacks are being targeted? How do we find the safety? Another one is how to reframe the media narrative from, naming each of our groups by the color of our skin or where we're coming from, to somehow just to see people as either two forces, either allies or enemies of our coexistence. And there are enemies and allies in every group of people. And Sofia Gubaidulina, by the way, has a beautiful orchestral piece about this very specific issue, and it's called Pro et Contra, pro and against, for and against. Also, how are we going to find a way to encourage our loved ones who are feeling stuck and depressed? So how can we have the intention of helping others, but then not suffocate them or try to control their outcome or their sense of agency? How can we ask for help from others without demanding that a certain outcome is generated? How can we ask for people to advocate for AAPI issues without some sort of an outcome, even as we strive to reach goals? So anyway, these are really hard issues, and I'm so grateful that through my processing these seminars with you, that hopefully I've been able to gently share the ways that I'm coping with it, the ways that I am using the beauty of music to pause and think about relationships and associations and connections. And I'm presenting minority values, I think, in our society right now, values of introspection and taking the time to understand different layers and different perspectives within each news story, within each conversation. And that needs to come to the foreground and have an equal voice, equal to efficiency. How are we going to process together? Okay, let's take a look. Anything else? All right. The second question is, how did you decide on the arc of this event? So it's been really fun to create an arc over 8 weeks. It's a nice, healthy length of time for me to be adding details and making more connections as I go. And framing these webinars at the beginning and the end with the support of 2 really important New Haven leaders has been just fabulous. So being able to share our perspectives as music lovers, and then also as people who deeply care about the well-being of New Haven. Within each segment, there's a little arc. I wanted to bring together 3 different parts of life, which are education, arts, and health. And so I start with my personal cultural experience as a Chinese American, something that informs my worldview. And then I go to music that represents my identity and that has a healing quality. And then I go to, the physical breath that is guided by the pulse and the phrasing in the music. And then I circle back to how can we create our own cultural experience now in the coming week. On the level of, week-to-week themes, there's also an arc. So I took us to some places of commonality, like honoring our families. And that's a great, easy way to start out. And then we went to some difficult places like internal intentions and reflection. And that was hard. That was the middle, the abyss in the middle. And now I'm ending by bringing threads together and trying to encourage people to invest in their enjoyment of life through music, and then also to practice how to connect our internal world so that we can free up our defense mechanisms and our anxiety and be ready for all the opportunities that may be hidden in plain sight. Also to be willing to ask for help that may be hidden in plain sight as well. So not only can we provide help, but I think it's important that we try to help people to feel safe asking for the help. And then we just wait for people to decide that they're going to own their wellness and build partnerships, and they know the timing for that. So I think that's the belonging piece of DEI. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? Who has inspired you for these webinars? Okay, so certainly the music inspires me every day, and my family inspires me every day, and also great artists making things possible and having the vision for beautiful things. Beautiful music, beautiful dances, beautiful theater. Great conversations with both my Asian friends and also my Asian ally friends. We've all been struggling to cope with the backlash around COVID-19 against Asians, about anti-Asian articles in education, in admissions, in social circles, in different industries. The stereotyping of having no personality because we have very different ways of self-expression and we have different values. We've been trying to figure that out together, and I'm so inspired when I hear different points of view from other people. And also friends who, some immigrated from China and some are born here and cannot be more American in every way, except that they look Asian. And friends from different races who have helped inform me of, their personal relationship with racial identity, which is so diverse. It's so different for each person. I took a great Hollaback anti-Asian American harassment training webinar, and that gave me another layer of ideas on resilience. So I highly recommend that, and the link is on my website, MMM resources page. Another inspiration, I remember talking with Dr. Celia Waterhouse, who's a board member at the University of Colorado where I taught, and she attended my online listening cafe and really encouraged me to go further with connecting music and health. And that kind of stuck in the back of my mind. Also, there's been such a huge increase in the quality and quantity of podcasts and webinars. And so some of my favorite moments in this just past week, even, I heard a podcast with Wayne Brady, this incredible improv artist and musician. And he said on the podcast that he thinks that the biggest obstacle to getting help is the narrative that you're going to be a fraud if you open up about your need And I feel really deeply that we as a society need to give people permission to feel that not winning all the time is totally acceptable. This idea that nobody wins all the time, it's just not possible, and we can try to engineer that to happen, but in the end, that is just it's not healthy. And so I just thought it was really great that he was talking about this issue of that is the biggest obstacle, and the shame that Brene Brown is so great at articulating. It totally ties into that. Another podcast I heard this week, Anne Lamott sharing about her Christian faith and the sacrament of ploppage. She's a writer, and she's great with words, and it's exactly what it sounds like: plopping, stopping. She's very down to earth, and if you ever box all Christians into a cookie cutter image because of how the media is, boy, will she surprise you. So, sacrament of ploppage. Weston Sprott, Dean of Juilliard Pre-College, he was on a recent Young Concert Artist Career Catalyst talk. My husband is president at YCA, and so I was listening in on this. And he was talking about how to program racially aware music. And he said, you always need to lead with the music. It first has to be great music. And so in my webinars, in the process of paring down and trying to curate what I actually wanted to present, I kept going back to that thought. What does this piece of music want to say? What is it actually sounding like versus what am I trying to impose on it? What am I trying to engineer? So yeah, so that's it. And thank you all so much for being part of my summer. And I hope that I hear from you and how this is playing out in your life. And there is a survey that we would really appreciate you filling out at yalechina.org/musical moments. It's a way for us to figure out how to have good positive impact, and also to be a way to thank our sponsors for supporting this program. And so I know that surveys are probably not the highest thing on your list, but if you could take a moment to do that, we really, really appreciate hearing back from you. All right, so on to the next thing. I'm going to be performing my first live show in 18 months next week in Colorado. Wish me luck, and I also wish you all the best as we continue to face uncertainties of life, but we're in this all together, and we are in this with the beauty of music. Happy listening.